Hi guys, so I have a different video right here in today. This is gonna be in relation to the retro gaming stuff, and I have the one device here that retrains to retro gaming, and it's a portable handheld device from 1998 that supports color display, pretty much. It's this thing right here. So what this is a Game Boy Color. This is a variation of the original Game Boy handheld that was released in late 1989 or something. This one released in Japan in October of 1998, and then released about a month later in November here in the US and Europe in November 1998, pretty much. And this thing has, well, as far as the hardware goes, pretty much the exact same hardware as the original Game Boy. The same custom 8-bit processor, a sharp 8-bit processor in here that runs at 4 megahertz, and now has the option to run at 8 megahertz, pretty much. It has twice the RAM and ROMs sizes for for games that take advantage of that. And this thing can support up to about like 56 colors on screen at a time. Potentially, well, up to 56 colors max, with a color palette of 32,768. And this has an audio chip on here that supports 2 square wave channels, 1 wavetable channel, 1 noise channel, and that's all you get. It's pretty much the same basic hardware as it is, like on the original Game Boy. This and the original Game Boy make pretty unique chiptune devices. I gotta say that. With something like LSDJ or something like that, it can really turn this into a really great music making device. Trackers and such. This screen right here is like, I don't know, it's a bit smaller than the original Game Boy, obviously. If you compare this to the Game Boy Light and the original Game Boy, the Game Boy Light and the original Game Boy are both almost the exact same screen size. This one's just a little bit smaller for whatever reason, but still the same resolution. It's about like 160 by 144. And this thing takes 2 AA batteries. If you remember, the original Game Boy has it took 4 AA's, while the Game Boy Pocket took 2 AAA's. Now, obviously, since people don't even have, well, most if not all people didn't have AAA's in their collection, they only have AA's. Wasn't really right for them, but the ones that do have them, they'll have a good time with it. And the Game Boy Light, which was only released in Japan before the Game Boy's Color's release, like in early to mid 1998, it took AA's too. And yeah, it provides up to, with these, it provides up to like 10 hours of battery life in comparison to the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Pocket and potentially the Game Boy Light. You get like with the original Game Boy, we get like 15 hours of gameplay on just 4 AA's, which compared to its competitors, the Lynx and the Game Gear came to mind. They took 6 AA's. They would last up to like between 3 to 5 hours of gameplay. So Nintendo was really taking advantage of the portability and battery life in mind with these things. I know the original Game Boy doesn't have a color screen, but all the other competitors did. But the Game Boy did for what it is. It's basically their blue ocean approach. They don't want to. They take unique. They focus on unique, unique little things instead of just going for raw power. Like, especially with this one, and even with their current Switch models. Like this is my current Switch that I got back in December 2019. I still use this from time to time. This is the special edition version, obviously, because it's got all red Joy-Cons. This is part of the Mario and Bowser pack. I do have the carrying case with it, but back to this thing. About the battery life. Oh yeah, the Game Boy Pocket took 10 hours of battery life on 2 AAA batteries, and the Game Boy Light had increased this to 20 hours of battery life with 2 AA's with the backlight off, but 12 hours of battery life with the backlight on with 2 AA's. So they had pretty consistent battery life. It's usually 10 hours of gameplay on the improved models. Well, the rest of the Game Boy line was really great on the battery life. You could spend hours and hours playing your favorite games on your Game Boy devices because they have really great battery life compared to all the other competitors. But anyways, I kind of rambled on way too long about what this Game Boy Color is. What I'm gonna show you in this video is basically showing you the different types of color palettes that you would select when you insert an original Game Boy Color game like this one. This is Tetris for the original Game Boy, released in 1989. This came shipped with Game Boy systems in pretty much all around the world except Japan, pretty much. And yeah, this was pretty much the Game Boy's killer app, pretty much. A lot of people remember this version because, well, it's got the iconic Russian folklore music on it. You know, listen to track A on this one. It's pretty much iconic. This one also supports the link cable functionality, as you can see by this thing right here. Official Game Boy Video Link. That's what they call it. Official Video Link Game Pack, which means it can support the link cable so that 2 players can play side by side, usually with the same copies. I know for sure the Pokemon games in particular, Generation 1 and Generation 2, they can actually mutually they're mutually compatible with each other, especially for Gen 2 and Gen 1 games. Well, Gen 2 specifically, you can transfer any Pokemon from a Gen 1 game over to a Gen 2 game. So that's pretty much, yeah, wide compatibility pretty much. I mean, anyways, enough of that. I'm going to show you this. So we put this game in the cartridge. So this is the cartridge slot, obviously. So this thing takes regular Game Boy games because it is backwards compatible with it. It can also take Game Boy Color's enhanced games like this one. This one is in a black cart and it plays on original Game Boy hardware, but also on this thing. And including the Game Boy Advance and up to the Advanced SP, not the Micro, because the Micro removed the hardware needed for Game Boy and Game Boy Color backwards compatibility. But yeah, so we got this, but there was also Game Boy Color exclusive titles that were in clear carts and were not compatible with older Game Boy systems. But anyways, now that we got the cart here, because this thing also works. Now, if we turn this on by default, you can see the Game Boy logo on there, and I bring this up to the screen. Here's its default color palette that Tetris gets. That's what it looks like. I'm playing a little bit just to show what kind of colors it kind of gets. That's pretty much the gist of it. So it's got like those orangey reddish type colors palette here. Sorry, don't mind the squeaking. That's just my chair, but anyways, we can also set to a different type of color palette. So if we start from the first combination, we'll start with the D-pad combinations. Then we'll do with the D-pad and then the buttons. So if we press up and turn this thing on, we get more of like a brownish type color palette. That's what it looks like. It gives the game more of a Spaya tone, I guess you could say. You know, it depends from game to game, but turn that off and I'll do it down, press down. This is what's called a pale yellow. So yeah, that's what it looks like, and you can see a little bit of blue there. So you can see some of the pieces are blue, some of them are like this like pale yellowish color, whatnot. And then we go to left. This is like the blue color. You can see the Game Boy startup screen's like tinted blue. Yep, everything is tinted blue here. And even the pieces, when they drop, they also turn blue. I just only do this for the demonstration because I need to show all the pieces. Game over. And then right is green, so you can see the Game Boy logo is like there's green and there's red. So we got green and red here, pretty much. It's like, yeah, you probably get what I'm saying. That the colors remind you of something. Just had to fit that in. Alright, now we've done the D-pad stuff. Now we'll do a combination of, well, we'll start with the up stuff. So up and A. Turn on. This is the red color. As you can see. This little red color-ish. We see, I think that's a little bit of a greenish color palette or some for some of the pieces before they're dropped, and it turns to red. And then up and B, turn on. This is the dark brown color scheme. And now I know this is, it's not really the best way to show all the available colors, but like this is an unmodified Game Boy pretty much. Well, it has an unmodified screen, but the case is different. This is more of a DMG styled, DMG inspired case. The case is gray and not like that beige white color, but the buttons, like the face buttons, are similar to that in design. And this was originally green. I took it out and replaced it with this one that I got off of eBay pretty much. The green case is sitting over there in the cabinet, obviously. And I put this on all by myself, pretty much. And it's looking pretty nice. Pretty staggering, if you ask me. But anyways, Here's the game itself. Yeah, nothing that much. Different color palette, and yeah. Now we'll do down and A. And this is the orange color scheme, which I think this is actually the default, one of the default color palettes that Tetris selects, I think. We'll have to check that ourselves. Which I'll turn it off and turn it on without selecting a color palette just to see that's actually the default color palette. So down and A is orange. Yep, that's pretty much this. So so the Tetris default color palette is pretty much down and A, pretty much. So for down and B, that's yellow. You know, you can actually set color palettes when you turn on and then just pressing a different combination. Then you'll do that. So here's this like goldish color, but some pieces are blue before being dropped, and then they turn yellow afterwards. They turn into like this goldish yellow color. And then left and A. This is the dark blue color. More of like a sea blue or something. Some pieces are reds, like before they're dropped, and then when they're dropped, it turns into this dark bluish color. And then the next combination is pretty much well known, which is a left and B, but I'm gonna save that for last. So right and A is dark green, and this is pretty much the default palette for games that do not support custom color palettes stored for each game. So this is what it would look like if Tetris didn't have a custom color palette built in, pretty much provided for the game. So this is what it usually looks like. Do a little rundown here. I'll just do breakout. Alright, and then right and B reverses all the colors for it. You can see the Game Boy color is inverted. Yep, the entire screen is inverted. So it makes it look like the whole entire screen is inverted pretty much. Which I don't know if the color scheme, this actually inverts all the colors on screen for a given palette. I am not entirely sure, but yeah, you get the point. Alright, now comes to the one combination that most people all know pretty much by now, and it's pretty much popular pretty much. You hold down left and B and you turn on the system. Well, before I do that, I'm going to show you all the well, I'm just going to show you this. So hold down left and B, then you turn on the system. You can see that's in the grayscale mode, which that actually is. It runs it in black and white mode, grayscale. See? So all the colors are now gray pretty much. So it's like playing on the Game Boy Pocket or like the Game Boy Light or something. But pretty much it simulates what playing it on an original Game Boy Color, oh not Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Light and Game Boy Pocket pretty much. Where it's all black and white. Oh, and incidentally, I'm gonna be asking this, but the WonderSwan, which is basically a competitor to the original Game Boy, well, the WonderSwan Color specifically, it supports backwards compatibility with existing WonderSwan games, but they're only played in black and white. They have no color support. Unlike with the Game Boy Color here, it supports color for each and every single Game Boy Color game, pretty much. You put it into grayscale mode just by doing left and B, then you turn on the system, or left and B when on the startup screen, then it'll revert back to grayscale mode, pretty much. And I don't know why, after you unpause it, the wavetable, it sounds very different. Which I suspect is probably a remnant from a very early release of Tetris, which had a different music for music A or track A, whatever it's called. But it had a completely different music that's not this iconic Russian folklore song. But it was like a completely original music. That's what most people call the minuet version. Yeah, the minuet version of Tetris. There's a rare version that's only released in Japan. And the one that we got here in the States and in Europe is this the famous Russian folklore version, because of the aforementioned Russian folklore song that you're hearing right now. And I'm on level 2. Great for that. Now I'm just gonna have to like break out the top there purposely. But yeah, that is pretty much that. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the color palettes that you can get. Pretty much, it's up. It has 16 color palettes built into the Game Boy's firmware or BIOS. So if we actually turn this thing on, we can actually select a color scheme from here. Well, we can select the color scheme via the D-pad first. Then we press the combination of like A and then B to select it. And when we're doing this, I'm rocking a D-pad and we're still cycling through the color palettes. That is so that is so cool. Now I'm gonna. So yeah, you select the color palette. So instead of just holding down the combination, you can actually select the color palette using the D-pad, pretty much. And you can press a combination of A and B too as you're doing this, and it will promptly change the color palette for you. Look at this. Yeah, I'm just like doing all the color palette changing business here. Anyways, so let's go through all the available color palettes that we've gone over pretty much. So up is brown, then up is brown, down is pale yellow, and left. Up is brown, down is pale yellow, left is blue, and right is green. Then we go up, and A is red, and then up and B is dark brown. Down A is orange, which is the default color palette for Tetris, provided by the Game Boy itself. And then down B is yellow. Then we'll do down left and A is dark blue color, and left and B turns on grayscale mode. And then right and A is dark green, and right and B is invert mode. Yeah, I can cycle through left and left, right, and B, and we get grayscale, inverted, grayscale, inverted, grayscale, inverted, grayscale, inverted, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, just cycling through all these different color palettes, just because why not? It's just too entertaining for me. But yep, set to grayscale mode. But yeah, I feel like I went on this video for a bit too long, discussing the different color palettes and a little bit of detail, but yeah, that is that for this video. So yeah, thank you guys all for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one. See ya.